Listen, Dr. Greene, you and I have had a conversation or two or three or however many about the importance of knowing things as you sit in front of these amazing books, really embodying what it means to be a keeper of knowledge. And not just for yourself, but you have institutionalized the importance of knowledge through literacy, through reading, through literature. And you are here today because you're kicking off the another edition of this amazing conference, the only one of its kind that's truly engaging in this way, the National Black Writers Convention. Talk to us about what we can hope to learn at the National Black Writers Convention this year, particularly as we're in a time when book bans and banning access to knowledge seems to be what's driving one of the two largest political parties in our nation.
Yes, this topic is so timely. This is so important. This conference is taking place, as you said, at a pivotal moment. The conference is the 17th National Black Writers Conference, all that we carry. Where do we go from here? And when you look at what's happening with voter suppression, when you look at banned books, when you look at the censoring of the curriculum, when you look at the rise in white supremacy, when you look at the criminal justice system, when you look at all of these obstacles that we face, we still manage to persist. And we do so through specific actions. And our writers really lead the way in showing us how to do this. And so this book is inspired by Taya Miles, who wrote All That She Carried, the story of Ashley Sack, which shows how Black women persisted through enslavement, through civil rights, the Civil Rights War, through Reconstruction and into Jim Crow. And so this topic is what we are addressing. People can expect to hear writers talking about this topic from the perspective of the work that they have done. And we are opening with a talk on where the theme of the conference, All That We Carried, Where Do We Go From Here, with Michael Eric Dyson. That's the official opening tomorrow. But we have a wonderful pre-conference activity today. We have an open mic, and we have also Real Sisters, African Voices Real Sisters are showing several films, and we'll have a film discussion. I encourage people to go to our website where you can get the full program at www.centerforblackLiterature.org. We have a conversation with Taya Miles. We have a poetry cafe on Thursday afternoon. We have a reading with our elders. We have our exciting roundtable discussions. We are honoring Percival Everett from the book on which he wrote the book Erasure. American Fiction was based on that. We're really excited about having him. We're honoring Paul Coates, who is an institution builder, Black Classic Press. We are honoring Peniel Joseph, an historian. His latest book, The Third Reconstruction, I think epitomizes where we are now. What happens when you have backlash after Blacks are empowered, after Obama left. We had a massive backlash, and we are now in what he's calling the Third Reconstruction. And we're honoring Bernice McFadden, who has written for years around the Black family and the experience, and just drawing on her ancestors. Our awards program is Saturday evening and is hosted by Jacqueline Woodson.
I have to be honest with you. I feel a little point of privilege because I literally can come out my office and run into you and your amazing team members and staff members. But it feels like a real space of privilege to be connected to someone who has such a reverence for things to know, for knowledge being passed in an intergenerational way. Having the poetry slam and the films, the film series, having an interdisciplinary way of presenting literature to a people for whom education has always been important, Dr. Greene. We know that in the immediacy following the Civil War, that Black people, we made it one of our most important goals was to educate and eradicate illiteracy. We know that we came here knowing multiple languages, knowing how to read in multiple languages, maybe not English, but English was not the only language that there was to be known. And so it almost is personally an affront when I see that we have a political agenda ravaging this nation right now that is seeking to ban knowledge, particularly knowledge about us. Dr. Greene, you might be on somebody's list because you are highlighting the very sorts of knowledge that have made so many people uncomfortable. As an author, as someone who curates this sort of knowledge transfer, how has this era of book bans and just blatant attacks on Black history, how has this landed for you?
Well, I'm going to quote my colleague Donna Hill, who is a moderator, colleague, writer of 100 books. And she said, when asked about banned books, she said, I would be privileged to have my books banned because
Mm,
it means that I'm saying something, I'm making people uncomfortable, and
yeah.
I am being a real truth teller. And I think we have to look at ways that we resist this. So we have what Ta-Nehisi Coates has said, we should have some banned book parties. We have to
Mm,
make sure that we use these books in our curriculum. I have been approached about some of their speakers who are on the panel. They said, are you concerned? Because they are speakers who will be targeted,
yeah.
who might have to walk around with bodyguards because their books are banned, or their attempts to censor their speech. So I
Mm.
think this is a really critical moment, and I feel really privileged to be in it, to have a space to be at an institution to host this conference where we can be the leaders and illustrating what we can do to resist and to persist. And one of the things we're doing is also having a voter education table in collaboration with you, with the Center for Law and Social Justice. That's
That's
another
right.
way we resist. We
That's
make
right.
sure that we vote and we exercise our rights to vote.
And we're excited about that because Dr. Greene, the Center for Law and Social Justice was a recipient of the Urban View Gives funding campaign. And so all of you who help to donate, part of what your work is going to help support is this voter outreach that will be taking place at the National Black Writers Convention. And that's one of the reasons why we have to have an interdisciplinary approach. I said yesterday, we got to meet people where they're at. We don't have time for judgment. We have to meet people where they're at and provide them the information in a way that they can digest. And Dr. Greene, I am not the only one who's had a testimony like the following, where you have kids who are considered illiterate, kids who, quote unquote, just don't want to learn. But as soon as you put these same children who have sort of been written off by the education system, but as soon as you put in front of them books, the kind that you promote, the kind that you center and value in your work, as soon as you put them in front of the autobiography of Malcolm X, as soon as you put them in front of, the chickens who thought they were, the eagles who thought they were chickens, as soon as you put them in front of books that center them, I see a light turn on that no traditional education system can really ever put out, so long as they have access to materials that are valuing them. Give us a sense of your understanding of the transformative power of having access to this information. It's one thing for the academicians and the people who are, already established, but for our community who, again, after the Civil War, helped to virtually eradicate illiteracy. Give us a sense as to the transformative power that books and access to knowledge can have in our communities, in our schools, in our youth, and really exposing them to a world that perhaps they've never seen.
Well, I think what we do is we have a youth program for our youth. We have a program called Re-envisioning Our Lives Through Literature, and the focus is on activism and what can we do. We have to start with our youth. And we start with our youth by giving them books and giving them ways to engage with the issues, the current issues, and showing how they can affect change by giving their own stories, by writing poetry, and by participating in the process, in the democratic process. Our students, the Student Government Association, your Center for Law and Social Justice, and the Brooklyn chapter NAACP are combining to make sure that people understand the value and importance of voting. Our student government president of the freshman year program, as he began to think about it, he said, I didn't realize how deep this is, how
Mm,
important it is that we really understand this and we exercise this right. So when you talk about the transformative power, books have a way of transforming people. When people ask you what inspired them, very often they will point to a teacher or they
right.
will point to a book and
Yeah.
an educator. And again, we're in a special place because unlike so many people in our society, we have the power to really affect change. We have the power to motivate young people. We impact thousands of people. And we do so through conferences like this and in our classrooms. And we emphasize that this is not only for the youth and students, but this is for the community. This is an opportunity to get the community to delve more deeply into the issues, to become much more informed. And when you're informed, you can enact your activities from an informed and a special place.
Mm.
Part of what we see happening is if you're only looking at the media, if you're only looking at the internet, if you're only looking at sound bites, you're not going to get the facts. And
Yeah.
so what our writers do is to give us the facts, and they do it by embellishing it using their creativity and their imagination,
Mm.
or doing it in poetry. Our writers are our griots. They are the ones who are really thinking deeply, because as you know, writing can be a very lonely
Yeah.
activity. And
Yeah.
so, and it can be a lonely activity because they are deep thinkers. Our writers and our artists and our musicians, they go to another space that many of us can do, but we don't always do.
Mm. How do we compete, Dr. Greene, with all of the things out there that are vying for our, not just our attention as young people? I'm thinking about social media and the fact that our children are exposed to media content that moves extraordinarily quick pace. It moves like it's rapid pace, and we to get them to slow down enough to sit with a book. For a lot of parents, for a lot of educators, it almost feels like a Herculean task because you're competing with an attention span that has been curated by TikTok videos and 90-second interactions with bits of information. How do we approach this generation in a way that says this very slow medium of reading, this has got something for you valuable, and it is not going to move as quickly as your TikTok feed? But how do we introduce to a generation that, frankly, I have kids right now. I'm trying to get them to sign papers. Like I'm onboarding interns, as you well know. I'm onboarding interns. They don't know how to sign their name,
They
Dr.
don't
Greene.
know how to write in
They,
cursive.
they
I
don't know how
know.
to write in cursive
They
and
don't know how
how
to
to write
write
by hand.
letters. Yes, I know.
Yes. So
I know.
how do we compete with that? And because knowing everything that you just said about the value of literature, the value of information, the value of reading, how do we compete with that in a world where, frankly, things are moving far faster than you might be able to turn a page?
We have to accept and embrace that the world is different, and we have to start where the students are. I observed a class, and I at first, when we first began really using the internet much more and using our iPhones, I used to say no iPhones allowed in the classroom. I would never say that now.
Right.
When I observed this instructor, when he started the lesson, he said, "Okay, everyone take out their phone." And
Mm.
so the phone became the place where they looked at the issues that he was going to focus on for that day. We have to start where our students are. I
Yes.
say to teachers, to educators who I work with, do not expect them to go home and do all of this homework. Don't do that.
Mm.
Create spaces in your classrooms where they can really practice what you're saying. Make sure that everything you do, you're evaluating that in every moment. Make sure you're engaging people in every moment. Give them activities where you may have something where they can come and speak out about what's happening. We have
Mm.
to get them to move we have to move at the pace that they're moving at. And so instead of fighting against it, we have to embrace what they know and get
Mm.
them to bring their knowledge and their expertise and their techniques about what's going on. Because
Yeah.
we can learn too. We can learn a lot from our youth. As
That's
you
right.
know, as a parent, you learn a lot
Yes.
from your children are teaching you all of the time. They're
Yeah.
teaching you about culture and about what's going on. And that's our task. And it and can be challenging and daunting, but we have to realize that the the next generation is who we have a responsibility to ensure that they understand where we came from, but they can move forward. So
Mm.
let's look at what they can bring to us, and
Yeah.
let's use the internet. Yes, let's use videos.
Mm.
Let's use graphic novels. Let's not shun those. Let's use the music. Let's
Yeah.
use that and understand that that's our text, because there's so much knowledge in the world that if you can find the hook, like the opening act in music,
Mm.
if you can find
Mhm.
the hook to
Yes.
engage them, that becomes the start.